Hello and welcome to DawnNews English. I'm Nadia Naqi with you. We have the chairperson of HRCP, Hina Jilani, with us, and we shall be discussing the human rights situation for which HRCP has raised concerns in a recent presser. Thank you so much for joining us. Hina Saiba, what are the concerns of HRCP ahead of the 2024 8th Feb elections?
The concerns that we have, the more significant ones, are more or less the same as we had before the 2018 elections. If you remember, the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, in a press conference held just a few weeks before the 2018 elections, our spokesperson, Mr. Ayar Rahman, had started the press conference by saying this is the dirtiest election we have seen in Pakistan. I can say today that it is a dirty election plus more. I don't think that I would like to take the reference of any one political party who is not receiving level playing field. But for me, what is important is the constitutional direction to the Election Commission for holding free and fair elections in accordance with law. And I think there is a very, very grave and serious suspicion that these elections are not, or pre-election preparations are not going in accordance with what the Constitution demands. There are several allegations that have been made against the Election Commission with regard to, for instance, the recent rejection of nomination papers. Now, I'm not saying that that's not a part of the function of the Election Commission or the ROs, but that the transparency that is required from the Election Commission is not apparent. When these allegations are made, the Election Commission has not been able to effectively respond, and the media has not carried forward the reasons why these nominations were rejected. On the other hand, the number of rejections themselves raise a question: reasonableness and fairness of the scrutiny process that has taken place. So these are some of the most significant issues that are before us, apart from what you as the media have been reporting again and again, and which has become quite visible now, that there is a political engineering in play right now with respect to who is able to contest and who is not able to contest, or who receives the rights as a candidate under the Constitution and who doesn't receive those rights. So It's not the question of one political party at the moment. This one political party, if it suffers, the rule of law suffers, and credibility of the elections suffer. So it doesn't matter who it is. The point is, what is the performance and what is the credibility of the Election Commission? At this time, I think that's the most important thing before us.
Okay, the questions that you have raised regarding the credibility of the Election Commission, my question is that, with such excessive powers now given to the Election Commission of Pakistan after the amendments, is it really free to exercise these powers? Because we have seen that institutions in such scenario are unable to exercise those powers. They come under duress.
Look, the point is, I'm all for the Election Commission having as many powers as there are possible, because they have a very gigantic task to perform. But at the same time, I must insist and emphasize that it is up to every institution like the Election Commission, which is a very, very important institution, to safeguard its own independence. However much we may stress on the independence of institutions, it is up to the institutions themselves primarily to ensure that they are able to function in an independent manner. And if they are not being allowed to do that, it is their responsibility to speak out publicly about it.
All right. So we also see that, as you said, that, you're not talking about one particular political party, but that particular political party, that is Tehreek-e-Insaf, seems to be the aggrieved one right now, as comparatively with others. And, they have gone to the court also, to the Supreme Court of Pakistan, where they are demanding the level playing field. How much do you expect the Supreme Court now to come into play in regards with a free and fair election? Because they have been saying it that 8th Feb 2024, they're going to ensure the elections are conducted. So, to conduct the election is one, but being free, fair, and transparent is the other. How do you think the Supreme Court can now play a role?
I think the Supreme Court can play a role. Nevertheless, let us also remember that the main question here is how far are these allegations reasonable or true. This is the point that the Supreme Court may be able to ascertain, but I think failing of the Election Commission at the moment to effectively refute these allegations is also a problem, because the information in the public sphere is therefore not clear enough. How can we say outright that every rejection, obviously the election tribunals will have to see to it before the election fairness and transparency of the elections will be determined. Nevertheless, I think the media also have to be, and the grounds for those allegations and the reasons for those allegations also be brought forward. The ROs have the authorities to reject nomination papers. What we need to know from the Election Commission is why, what were the reasons for these rejections. There are too many in the field, and rejection, for instance, of people from Balochistan, people from PTM, Sardar Akhtar Mangal's rejection, the rejection of PTM leaders like Mohsin Dawar and Ali Wazir. I think these are some of the things that point towards a suspicion that people who do not agree with the establishment's point of view and their set agenda will perhaps not have a say in how Pakistan structures or restructures, firstly, its security policy, and secondly, its economic policy.
So in such a scenario, if these particular cases are not addressed, and of course, all those rejections that have been given or awarded by the ROs, and then, they have to go to the appellate tribunal, what sort of a democracy are we looking at then?
You see, democracy is not the concern here, or relevant. Democracy entails these procedures. Democracy expects such procedures to be undertaken, and objections must come and will always come. But at the same time, what we are looking towards, again, as I said, is a belief in the independence of the authorities who are dealing with these objections, and whether they are acting strictly in accordance with law. The election laws and rules in this country are very precise on how the scrutiny is to take place and what are the reasons for the rejections. Election Act of 2017 prescribes this. That is why I keep insisting that just don't say that these rejections have taken place and they are suspicious. The Election Commission must come forward. If the media is not reporting, the Election Commission must come forward and say these were the reasons why these were rejected, so that the public perception is corrected if there is any incorrectness in the allegations.
All right, but Hina Saiba, I happened to speak to a few of the people who seem to monitor the elections and understand this election act. They say it's not mandatory on the Election Commission of Pakistan to make it public that why the ROs have rejected a particular nomination paper. But at the same time, there have been complaints, again, by Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf that they have not been given in writing why these papers have been rejected.
Look, every decision has to have reasons. So even if the election rules do not make it incumbent upon the Election Commission to give reasons or to make public the reasons, the situation at the moment demands that. And there is no prohibition in the election rules for publication or making it public. And obviously, while they should make it public, the reasons to be given to the affected party is mandatory and is always implied, even if it is not written in the law.
All right. So from the elections now, let's move on to the missing persons, because that's also one of the most important cases that at present is being, heard by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. And there was a hearing today also, and it has been now the next hearing, I guess, is going to be on the 9th of January. But in this scenario, we also have Marang Baloch, who's actually sitting along with other protesters outside the National Press Club, and the handling of this situation. How does HRCP look at that?
The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, and I personally myself have always engaged with the whole question of the issue of missing persons. And I have done several missions to various affected areas where there is a concentration of this practice and victims, a concentration of victims. And I think that nobody can deny that this is not just the most serious legal crime not just in Pakistan, but also globally. It is a crime against humanity with very severe criminal penalties in international law. We have again and again pointed out that this is the most serious human rights violation in this country, and it is on the top of the agenda of the human rights community. I'm very happy that the Supreme Court has once again taken it up, but I also want to remind that the first public interest litigation that happened in 2007 was filed by Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. It was because of that the first commission on enforced disappearances was formed. It was a 3-member commission. They even gave their report, which was never made public. So there is no clarity in what kind of actions can be taken, which even today I heard the Chief Justice ask again and again, what do you want us to do? It is very clear on what needs to be done. Firstly, the commission that was formed later under the chairpersonship of Justice retired Javed Iqbal has not only not performed its function, it is a total failure, but there is also an issue of credibility of that commission and the chairperson himself. So the first thing, of course, for the Supreme Court to consider is what kind of a mechanism can be constituted under the law in order to implement any law on enforced disappearances that is finally legislated. Now, you also heard, of course, in the Supreme Court, the case of the missing bill that Shirin Mazari has talked about. Now, obviously, it's true that she should have taken that responsibility of making sure that a bill, if it has disappeared, she should have resigned as the minister. Secondly, I think that there are some good things that were a part of that bill. And the most important one was not just individual criminal responsibility, but command responsibility also, which implicated institutions that have adopted the practice of disappearances as a policy of the state. And this, I think, is the most important thing. Secondly, Pakistan has not ratified the UN Convention on Enforced Disappearances. Even though it has not ratified it, the truth is, and the reality is, that enforced disappearances are a serious crime. It is a crime against humanity, recognized as such, and cannot take place under any circumstances at all. No circumstances, whether you're a criminal or a terrorist, you cannot be disappeared. If this practice continues, then the state of Pakistan and its intelligence agencies are in fact saying that our rule of law is trash, that our laws do not cater for a serious crime like enforced disappearances, although the laws exist even now under Pakistan Penal Code, which can be applied to forced disappearances, but precise laws need to be made for offenses by the state. We have offenses against the state very heavily weighing against the citizens and their rights in this country, but there is no chapter in the Pakistan Penal Code saying, what are the crimes committed by the state, in which torture and forced disappearances and extrajudicial killings are the most prominent.
Absolutely. So what is happening outside the National Press Club? Do you think the administration and also the recent statements made by the caretaker Prime Minister makes one understand how the state actually looks at this? I mean, still after so much is being said, there is a case which is being contested in the court, and of course the law that you've just mentioned. But it seems that even the caretaker Prime Minister doesn't have a heart on the enforced disappearances. He keeps on saying that these are families of the terrorists.
I think that what the Prime Minister has said is not just irresponsible, it is highly condemnable. I stand with those who are outside the press club in Islamabad protesting against these, not only because I think that they have a right to protest, but because what they are protesting against actually goes to the core of how this state considers itself. And I think it is extremely shameful that the state is blatantly insisting on continuing a practice and in many ways trying to condone it impliedly or actually sometimes very blatantly and openly by connecting it and linking it with the security situation. Look, if there is a terrorist, you have anti-terrorism laws. What is there to prevent you from bringing these This is only in order to keep it an obscure thing, to create a lack of transparency between legality and illegality of detentions by blaming people of committing crimes. Well, if they have committed crimes, then deal with them under the law. What is preventing you? They have, so many myriads of anti-terrorism laws. They have all kinds of forums for trying and investigating terrorist activity. How can we justify disappearances? They can never be justified. As I said earlier, this is one of the crimes like torture and extrajudicial killings for which there is no circumstance under which it can be justified at all. And Pakistan can be proceeded against under the international law if things continue as they are. And I have said that again and again, that creating good images while your realities are so sordid, it shows that this is not a state that cares for the rights of their citizens. It is only wanting to have a good image internationally, which they have not succeeded in getting, because the world is so well connected now that what you do inside your country will always be seen from outside.
So towards the end, my question would be that we discussed the pre-poll political management that we always see before every general elections, and of course the enforced disappearances. What has changed? Has the state not learned? Has those non-elected people not learned, despite the fact that they had come out in the open saying that we are going to become apolitical?
Look, if I look at the recent history of what has happened in Pakistan and the constitutional crises that were created, there would have been so much that would have given the Election Commission and the relevant state authorities a justifiable reason, not just to prosecute some of the people who are under stress at this moment, but also to there would have been very legitimate reasons, perhaps for a few of them, not this vast group of people that they have now tried to keep out, but a few of them probably did deserve to stay out of the elections. So these are some of the things that they foul with their overreach, their over-exaggeration, and their false confidence that whatever they do has to be the right thing to do, and everybody has to accept that that is right. And I'm afraid the only change that I see right now is more public awareness and also more commitment in the human rights community. Cry foul where it is needed to prevent the rule of law from being totally eliminated and abnormal practices and violations becoming the norm.
And also the institutions within, that have the responsibility to stand up for their independence or otherwise raise that red flag on the right forum.
Look, I have always insisted, and many people like me in the Human Rights Commission and the community have insisted that even the judiciary, the Election Commission, and other institutions that have necessarily to have autonomy and independence to be able to guide the state towards the right path, they are the first ones to safeguard their own independence. We can only support their efforts to do so. And this is a message that we have been continuously giving, not just to the courts, but also to institutions like the Election Commission, the Independent National Institutions for Human Rights, the women's rights institutions. We are fighting for an independent commission on the rights of the minorities. But that's all we can do.
Thank you so much for being with us on 20 Minutes, Hina Jilani Saiba. That's all for today. Take care and goodbye.
Thank you very much.